of the wrecking machine. I knew he must have been about 17. He does young dad. Strong, and then I took her till it would be only me. Yeah, me. And I could tell it would be long.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be back in Bluffton. Mayor Toomer, thank you for welcoming us. We appreciate you very much. The mayor that will always remember for a long time, Mayor Salka. They don't get any stronger than that. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate everything. You know, you always want someone who's going to keep an area safe. Y'all don't ever have to worry as long as Duffy Stone is your solicitor. He's a great one. Give it up for Duffy. So it has been a whirlwind. First of all, it's a great day in South Carolina. On Thursday, it will be a year since I announced. And you know, when you think about what we did together in South Carolina, when I came in as governor, we had 11% unemployment. We had thousands of people on welfare. South Carolina was the butt of the jokes. And we all got together and we rallied. And by the time I left, we were building planes with Boeing. We were building more BMWs than any place in the world. We brought in Mercedes-Benz. We brought in Volvo. 5 international tire companies. They were referring to us as the beast of the Southeast. We passed tort reform and pension reform. We cut taxes. We took care of small businesses. We acknowledged some truths. We said if you have to show picture ID to buy Sudafed, if you've got to show picture ID to get on a plane, you should have to show picture ID to protect the integrity of the election process. We passed voter ID in South Carolina. We passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country. President Obama sued us over it, and we won. And by the time I finished being governor, we were named the friendliest state in the country. We were named the most patriotic state in the country. And don't blame me for this, we were named the #2 state in the country that people were moving to. We had a lot to be proud of. So when I think to this, the fact that we've almost been a year since I announced for president, it's been quite the journey. We had 14 fellas in the race. We've defeated a dozen of them. I just have one more I've got to catch up to. We began this race with 2% in Iowa. We finished it with 20%. Then we went on to New Hampshire. They said we were down by 30 points, and we got 43% of the vote. And what happened the night in New Hampshire? Donald Trump had a temper tantrum right there on stage. He was upset that we got 43% of the vote, and all he did was talk about revenge. Then the next day, he went and he said, anybody that supports her is barred permanently from MAGA. Now think about this. When you run for president, it's a story of addition. You're trying to bring people in, not throw people out of your club. Then the next day he goes and says to the RNC that he wants them to name him the presumptive nominee. We don't name someone king. We don't do coronations in America. South Carolinians needed to be able to vote on this election. The same way Michigan, Super Tuesday, and all those other states. Well, he got blowback, so he pulled that back a little bit. And then the next day, he lost he lost a court case. And he was upset about the court case he lost, and he went on a rant, talking about how he was a victim. And then the campaign disclosures came out. And we saw that he paid $50 million of his campaign contributions to his personal court cases. Now, what bothers me about this is that whether it was the night of New Hampshire, whether it was after the court case, at no point did he talk about the American people. At no point did he say that there was wasteful spending and we were $34 trillion in debt. At no point did he talk about the fact that only 31% of 8th graders in our country are proficient in reading. At no point did he talk about an open border where all it takes is one person to have a 9/11 moment. At no point did he talk about the lawlessness in our cities. And at no point did he talk about the wars around the world. He only talked about himself. And now we find out last night that he is placing a new RNC chair of the Republican Party, naming his daughter-in-law as co-chair, naming his campaign manager as director. And he's going to try and continue to take the party so that it does what he wants it to do. That's the problem. It's not about him. It's never supposed to be about him. And that's what's happened with politics. And instead, we should be saying, what do we have to do to get America moving again? We are $34 trillion in debt. We're having to borrow money just to make our interest payments. China owns some of that debt. But not only that, as of now, we're paying more money on interest payments than we are on our defense budget. You know who notices that? Russia, China, and Iran. And you look and what's Trump done? He's surrounded himself by all the political elite. All of those congressional members that have done absolutely nothing for us. And I'm watching them all stand around him. And all I keep thinking is, that's just more of the same. It's all more of the same. Do you know Congress has one job? Their only job is to give us a budget on time. Do you know they've only given us a budget on time 4 times in 40 years? Do you know what I say to that? You don't get us a budget on time, you don't get paid, period. The other thing I say to that is, don't you think it's finally time we had term limits in Washington, D.C.? Don't you think we need to have mental competency tests for anyone over the age of 75? Now, I'm not being disrespectful when I say that. We all know 75-year-olds that can run circles around us. And then we know Joe Biden. These are people making decisions on the future of our economy. These are people making decisions on our national security. We need to know they're at the top of their game. And all we know is Republicans and Democrats have spent all of our money on things that don't matter, on things that don't affect us every day. So how are we going to fix the economy? The first thing we're going to do is we're going to claw back the $100 billion of unspent COVID dollars that are still out there. Instead of 87,000 IRS agents going after middle America, we're going to go after the hundreds of billions of dollars of COVID fraud. 1 out of every $7 was spent fraudulently. If 8% of our budget is interest, quit borrowing. Cut up the credit cards. You have to balance a budget every day. I had to balance a budget as governor. Why is Congress the only group that refuses to balance a budget? We'll stop the spending, we'll stop the borrowing, we'll eliminate the pet projects and earmarks, and I will veto any spending bill that doesn't take us back to pre-COVID levels. That will save us trillions. Then we're going to take as many federal programs as we can and send them down to the states. That way we reduce the size of the federal government dramatically, but we empower people on the ground. Think education, think welfare, think healthcare, think mental health. If we moved all of that down without strings, how this would empower people so much more. And then we see the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And so we want to open up the middle class. We want to eliminate the federal gas and diesel tax in this country. We want to cut taxes on the middle class and simplify the brackets. And we want to make small business tax cuts permanent. They made them temporary. They made corporate tax cuts permanent. We want to make small business tax cuts permanent. Small businesses are the heartbeat of our economy. We need to start acting like it. Then you look at the border. I truly can't believe that America would allow this to happen. 8.5 million illegal immigrants have come across that border. We had enough fentanyl cross the border last year that would kill every single American. Number one cause of death for adults 18 to 45, fentanyl. And don't think for a second China doesn't know what they're doing when they send it over. Now, when we passed the toughest illegal immigration law in the country, we knew what we were doing, and that's why I want to take what we did in South Carolina and go national with it. We'll do a national e-verify where every business has to prove that the people they hire are in this country legally. We will defund sanctuary cities once and for all. No more safe havens for illegal immigrants. We'll put 25,000 Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. We will go back to the Remain in Mexico policy so that no one even steps foot on U.S. soil. And instead of catch and release, we're going to go to catch and deport. That is the only way to stop what's happening on the border. And then you look at our national security. When America's distracted, the world is less safe. We're seeing that happen all around us. And there was a rally on Saturday in Conway, and Donald Trump got in front of everybody, and he said two things that were dangerous. The first thing he said was that he thinks that any ally that doesn't pull their full weight, the United States will no longer defend. Keep in mind, these are countries that were there for us after 9/11. Then he said not only that, but any country in NATO not pulling its weight, that he's going to encourage Putin to invade them. Someone who wants to be the President of the United States is siding with a thug who kills his opponents. He's siding with Putin, who right now has arrested Evan Gersovich for just doing his job of being a journalist. He's siding with someone who has literally tried to defeat the United States for years. And that's who he wants to stand with? NATO has been a success story for 75 years. We haven't had a war in the region. Russia has never invaded a NATO country because they're intimidated by the alliance. China's intimidated by the alliance. The idea that you would throw a friend away in the name of an enemy is all you need to know. And that's what happens when Donald Trump goes off his teleprompter. Because for a few minutes he went off his teleprompter, and that's what came out of him. And you know what happens when that happens? That's when your true soul is showing. Now, he did another thing on Saturday. He mocked my husband's military service. Now, this is not personal for me and Michael, because we know when you're in the political bubble, that those things can happen. And we don't take this personally because right now that's the problem with politics. Donald Trump and Joe Biden take everything personally. It's not about them, it's about you. But I got my back up. Because when you talk about one military member and mock him, you're mocking every military member. Donald Trump has never even so much as been near a military uniform. Apparently he had bone spurs, and that's why he couldn't serve. The closest he's come to harm's way is getting hit by a golf ball in a golf cart. Our military men and women don't do this for fun. They sacrifice and they're willing to shed blood because they know it's bigger than them. They know freedom's not free. 7 months ago, I dropped Michael off at 4 a.m. for a year-long deployment. And I watched him and 230 soldiers pick up their 2 duffel bags of belongings to go to a country they'd never been, all in the name of protecting America. They're willing to sacrifice their lives and their families because they still believe in this amazing experiment that is America. So if they're willing to sacrifice for us there, shouldn't we be willing to fight for America here? And we have a country to save. But what we saw from Donald Trump is a pattern. He's referred to military members as suckers and losers. When he went to Arlington National Cemetery, where most people would be choked up, he went and he said, what was in it for them? Why'd they do it? Now he's going to mock my husband. That puts every military member in danger when you do something like that. And when you mock our allies, you're putting our allies in danger in a time where the world is not safe. That is the problem we continue to have. And you look at what we're dealing with. 70% of Americans have said they don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. This past weekend, a poll came out, 59% of Americans think Trump is too old and think Biden is too old. The majority of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. The majority of Americans disapprove of Donald Trump. And don't you think with a country in disarray and a world on fire, that we can do better than two 80-year-old candidates for president? We need someone who can serve 8 years of discipline and hard work to get our country back on track. So this comes down to, do we want more of the same, or do we want something different? And this also comes down to some hard truths. Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That's nothing to be proud of. We should want to win the majority of Americans. But the only way we're going to win the majority of Americans is if we have a new generational leader that leaves the negativity and baggage behind and focuses on the solutions of the future. Now, another hard truth. I voted for Donald Trump twice. I was proud to serve America in his administration. But the truth of the matter is chaos follows him everywhere he goes. And we can't have a country in disarray and a world on fire and go through 4 more years of chaos. Another hard truth. We will have a female president of the United States. The hard truth, it's either going to be me or Kamala Harris. Just look at the general election polls. Look at any of them. On any given day, Trump is down on Biden 5 points, 7 points, 9 points. On his best day, it's even. It's margin of error. I'm in every one of those same general election polls. And I defeat Biden by up to 17 points. Think about that. That's bigger than the presidency. That's governorships, that's House, that's Senate, that's school boards. But you win by double digits. That's a mandate going into D.C. to stop the wasteful spending and get our economy back on track. That's a mandate to get our kids reading again and go back to the basics in education. That's a mandate to secure our borders with no more excuses. That's a mandate for law and order back in our cities, and that's a mandate for a strong America that prevents wars that we can all be proud of. Don't you want that? Because we could have that, but it's going to take a lot of courage. Courage from everyone here. Courage for me to run, and courage for every one of you to know. Don't complain about what happens in a general election if you don't play in this primary. It matters. You know, I look at the last week to 10 days. You have the special counsel that comes out against Joe Biden and says that he's mentally diminished. Biden comes out, gives this angry speech, and he gets confused again about different countries. Then you look at Donald Trump's side. He loses his court case on immunity. They say they're going to name him, he's going to be Citizen Trump. Republicans lose a vote on Israel. Republicans lose a vote on the border. The RNC chair loses her job. Donald Trump had his fingerprints on all of that. He lost in 2018, he lost in 2020, he lost in 2022, and he continues to lose. How many more times do we have to lose until we start to say, maybe he's the problem? So now we've got some work to do. Early voting has started. Now, you all know people who are just general election voters. We know a lot of them. In a general election, you're given a choice. In a primary, you make your choice. This is about making our choice. What we need to do, if we want to get our country back on track, is understand the entire country is watching South Carolina right now. It is making sure you go to the polls, vote early, and take 5 friends with you. You take a yard sign, and yes, I know plantations don't allow yard signs, but you can put the sign in the back of your car so that people can see it. But you go and you make sure you tell everybody you know that anybody can vote in this primary, as long as they didn't vote in the Democratic primary. Anybody. If they want to make a difference, this is the way to do it. Vote early, or vote on February 24th. But this is my promise to you. I did this twice to you before when I was running for governor. I'm doing this for you now as I run for president. If you will go and join this movement and join this fight to save our country, I will spend every single day proving to you that you made a good decision. Thank you very much. God bless you.